Good evening. Welcome to Stationers Hall, if only virtually. My name is Linda Drew. I'm a liveryman, and that means I'm a stationer. And I want to give a big welcome to you this evening for our Stationers Company event on storytelling for creative and social entrepreneurs. A little bit about me, but it's not about me tonight. I'm the former Vice-Chancellor of Ravensbourne University, London, and I'm also the current chair of the Social Enterprise Mark and Visit Greenwich. Completely different kinds of organisations, but also very much involved with the Stationers Company School, the Stationers Crown Woods Academy. So big welcome also to my speakers tonight. A little bit more about them later. But first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Stationers Hall and the Stationers Company. Some of you obviously very familiar, not all of you are though. So let me tell you a little bit about it. I can remember actually when I first brought one of our speakers to the Stationers Hall, and she was asking.
Probably me.
So it was definitely Carolyn. Yep, that would be you. What was the deal? Like, what was the Stationers Company, and what were we about? And I explained, of course, that it goes right back to our connection with the City of London. The City of London has a number of livery companies. Our particular livery company is still very, very much connected with the live industry that is the communications and content industry. And we work to inform and to improve performance and prospects in that industry. But we go back hundreds and hundreds of years, 600 or so years, to be honest. And we have a lot of fun. A lot of people talk about the fun that we have when we meet in person, but we have a lot of fun when we meet in person on Zoom as well. We have a very active activity calendar. And so I remember as well explaining to Carolyn the whole tradition going back to the guilds and Guildhall of London, and that tradition of supporting businesses. And that the old Stationers Company, the name stationery came from the stations that the traders in paper and printed goods, paper goods, actually made around the courtyard of St. Paul's, where those stations were fixed stations, because obviously their kinds of products could not really be itinerant sold. So therefore they were stationery, selling stationery. And a lot of people don't know that. I know many of you do. So I'm probably teaching you how to suck eggs. But we are, I think, a very, very lucky company in that we have a magnificent hall, which is currently being renovated as part of our project 350 funded project, and it's going to be even better when we get back in there. But even so, we have a wee picture of the Stationers Hall just to remind you what it looks like. And I know that there'll be other events where you can see virtual updates of some of that fantastic refurbishment. Okay, so let me get on. And
Linda, could I jump in just at the beginning?
Yeah, of course.
We're so thrilled at Creative Entrepreneurs to be doing. Thank you so much for asking us to do this event in partnership with you. And I just wanted to say one quick thing, which I find actually so staggering for and so profound for creative people. And that's that Stationers is that's the birthplace of copyright. That I think in Queen Anne's Act in 1710, copyright first came into our human existence, and it was through stationers. And that was the beginning of creative people being able to commercialize the products of their imagination. And that's what we're all about at Creative Entrepreneurs, is helping people make their creativity into successful businesses. So it feels so fitting to be doing this alongside you, because you were the genesis of all of this at Stationers. So just so people really understand how what a profound role Stationers has played in creative people being able to make businesses out of their creativity.
Great. Thanks so much, Carolyn, for reminding us of that. And it is, as you say, just such a profound distinction about the Stations Company. And you're right to remind us of it. I'm going to also remind you of some of the things about our event tonight. We are recording the event so that if there are people that have signed up that can't make it for whatever reason, they can see the recording. And even for those of you that do come and decide to come again, you can see the presentations again and sign back in. The link will be sent to everyone after the event, and it will go onto the website and via our YouTube channel. There is an opportunity for everybody to ask questions, and depending on the sheer amount of them, we will sort of digest them probably thematically. Those Q&A from the audience will come towards the end of the event, so kind of on or before about 7 p.m. If you want to send us a question, there's a Q&A function. You can see it at if you scroll down, you can just see it at the bottom of your screen. And it's got Q&A on the right hand side. And then you can drop a question in there. You don't have to wait right to the end to ask the question. You can ask a question anytime, and we'll be kind of fielding what those questions are. But like I say, we'll come to those before the end. Obviously, I've got lots of questions for our panelists as well. Just as a bit of introduction, and they're all going to introduce themselves, I'm sure, extremely ably. I just wanted to say that every one of our speakers has got a firm footing in the media, the publishing and the digital worlds. I think that's what makes this event so unique, really, is that they've all got a link around storytelling, which is why we decided to choose this as the theme for tonight's event. And they choose to highlight that in the way they talk about their businesses as well. So in some cases, it's more obvious than others. So they've chosen to innovate with their own background and create new businesses, both in the creative enterprise world and also in the social enterprise world. Now, you might not know exactly what all those things are, but by the end of this evening, you will know. Each of them brings a certain amount of entrepreneurial pizzazz to what they do, and also a fair smattering of social purpose and impact as well, which I think particularly in the light of it being Rishi Sunak's second budget today, I think is something we should all remember about how we should be also thinking about building back better in the content and communications industries as well. But first of all, I'd like to pass over to our speakers and to introduce you to our speakers and guests, Fareed Huq, Tim West and Carolyn Daly, who are each in turn going to introduce you to their story, and their business. And then we're going to carry on from there, and I'm going to ask questions of the panel before you get a chance to have your say. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Fareed Huq of Early Stage Studios.
Hi, everybody. So as Linda just mentioned, I'm Fareed. I'm the founder and now chairman of Early Stage Studios, and we are a creative studio based here in London. Linda mentioned also that you know, a number of us are driven by our purpose, our mission. We're very much mission driven. Our mission is to actually educate creatively. As simple as that. And when hopefully by the time I take you through some of our projects, you will try and you will get a better feel for how we've managed to do that over the last number of years. We've been going for a little while now, and we're now present in 4 other countries. We have teams that are smattered around the globe, and we were always distributed as a team. So actually, that's another interesting conversation I hope we'll have today, which is, you know, how have teams coped with COVID and being distributed? But certainly not much has changed for us, actually, rather interestingly. So Linda, would you like me to hand over to Tim?
No, was asking you if you'd like to start with your presentation, basically.
Yeah, we can do that.
Well,
Just make sure that I didn't hog everything before.
sure.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Bear with me just a second while I get my presentation up and running. 1 second. Alrighty. Let me know when you guys can see everything.
I can see.
Great. Alrighty. So I was saying that, you know, our mission is to educate creatively, and actually that is where we got our start as a company. We really are a publishing company at its core, and what we do is we publish not only in print, but also digitally. So therefore, when Linda asked and Caroline and the rest of the guys were doing this event, I was so excited to be invited to do this. Thank you so much for asking us to be here. Traditionally, we've had two models. We've worked in industry as a gun for hire, so on commissions, where large publishing companies come to us, such as the Oxford University Press or others, and they say, hey, we have this project that we want to get done. Would you be interested in helping us do that? And we partner up with them and do it behind the scenes. In those cases, we don't really get any mentions, so we are the hidden heroes behind the scenes. But in other cases, we're very much front running with our own products and services, so we do that also. I mentioned we're in a couple different countries. Primarily, most of our work, surprisingly, is actually in North America. You may have, I guess, clocked on by my accent that I'm not from here. I'm originally from Toronto, and then I moved here about 16 years ago. And I guess the only other thing I would mention is there's a lot of buzzy words in our industry, like infotainment and edutainment. And I guess we really sit smack in the middle of that stuff, because what we're really trying to do at our core is use information to creatively educate people through different media. So I think that's a good way to describe what we do. And most recently this year, I'm very proud to share with you that we've actually expanded back out into games, because actually we used to make games and then we stopped doing it because it just got so competitive. But now we found our edge on a new platform called Roblox, which we'll talk about a little later. And we're also producing our first anime this year. So we got our start with a small Kickstarter project. I don't know how many of you have actually done a Kickstarter before, but I think it's worth mentioning because many years back, I think publishers, indie publishers like me, would have had to spend a truckload of money in terms of just having working capital to print so many books and then sell them to schools. I was very lucky that we ran this campaign on Make History, which was our product taking O-level history books and converting them into comic books, graphic novels. And what happened at the end was we managed to beat our goal on Kickstarter, which is a crowdfunding site. And rather amazingly, you can then use that money to actually fulfill those orders. So none of your own money gets used there. You're customer funded as a business. And I love that. But despite the fact that we were customer funded, we had actually gone out to market and raised some money as well. And we were backed by a couple of families that believed in our mission to educate creatively. And we've stayed with those investors all the way through, and very, very fortunate to have them. We went on from there to becoming a serious graphic novel publishing business. And the serious graphic novel publishing business is one where you actually work with large organizations, typically governments or NGOs, or maybe even other publishing companies that want to deliver a message through a serious message through the graphic novel format. This is different than comics. This isn't funny. This isn't haha funny. This is actually stuff that is pretty hard-hitting. In 2019, we partnered with the US Congress and the Blue Ribbon Panel to create something called A Graphic History of Germ Warfare. And that was done by working together with Max Brooks, who is a celebrated author and historian. He is also known because he's Mel Brooks' son, but he's my board member and I absolutely love him to bits. I don't think I would not have got my start in this industry if it hadn't been for a chance meeting with him at the Piccadilly Waterstones. So there's a great story there, which I'll share with you another time. But once we were done with this project, it got a lot of limelight. We were covered by a lot of different media. We then partnered with another part of the US government to create a series called the Resilience Series. And Resilience Series was all about addressing a very, very large looming problem that also is affecting the United Kingdom around disinformation. And the disinformation that we were fighting was with foreign state actors. And I mean, now it's been proven. So I think I don't need to point a finger at a specific country, but it's been very challenging, I think, for US elections in that they have been interfered with tremendously on social media. And it's, I think, presented significant challenges to people understanding what is true and what is not true. And that is what we tried to get across here, including going over what a deep fake is, and hence the name of the comic. This particular comic was Real Fake, and that ultimate oxymoron of, you know, what's real and what's not, and you can hardly tell. And if you look at the cover, that's exactly what's going on. It's confusing, intentionally so, because you can't really tell what is real and what's not. Now, what I'm about to show you right now on this slide here is something that nobody has seen yet, but rather interestingly, this will come out in another 2 to 3 weeks. It's another very important disinformation graphic novel that's going to be published by the US government. And it's called Bug Bites, and it's part of the Resilience series, but it's addressing the huge issue that we have around the misinformation that people perpetuated around the 5G towers and the vaccine's inefficacy. So it really goes into that. And again, we're super proud of this work. It'll come out in, in hopefully less than a month's time. So watch this space. And I'm actually sharing it here for the first time ever. We've never shared it externally with anyone before. And I mentioned that in 2021, we also branched out into games. Now, publishing is also about publishing games because very similar to the print sort of written word, you have to do a lot of work around, setting up a story. And Linda mentioned that storytelling is extremely important. I mean, with the first bit of work, whether it's, telling the story of history or talking about disinformation, that's pretty easy to understand because you're telling a story. But what about a game? Well, the game is also all about telling a story. And in this particular case, what we're trying to do is we're trying to tell the story of the environment. The Amazon in particular has been deforested and is experiencing significant stress right now. And the game that we've created is one that is hopefully trying to do something called nano conservation, which is that if you have millions of kids playing this game every day, and if they are planting trees in the Amazon, then what we're trying to do is we're trying to take that spend and actually divert some of that spend towards actual plantation of real trees. So imagine it's gaming meets carbon credits. And that's what we're trying to do here with the Amazon. It's a phenomenal experience making one of these games because one, it's 3-dimensional. Two, it's a full world. It's the metaverse, and it's Roblox. And Roblox is a platform where right now there are about 100 million kids between the ages of 8 and 12 playing on this particular platform. So I've taken up enough time, and I want to make sure that I give enough time to Tim and Carolyn to talk about their amazing businesses, but I'll just leave you with this. We do 4 bits of work: graphic novels, games and digital, animation, and social. And all 4 of those things are extremely important in terms of being able to get that story that we build across to our end audiences. So thank you so much for listening. My name's Fareed. Again, if you want to get in touch, my email is just fareed@earlystage.com. That's early misspelled intentionally with ERLYSTAGE. So that's enough for me, and over to you, Linda. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Fareed. That's really fascinating. And I know I've seen a lot of your publications. I was present when they were launched at Rohan Silver's bookshop in Spitalfields, the bookshop called Libraria, if I think I've pronounced that right.
That's right.
It's a gorgeous little bookshop, and obviously it's closed at the moment. But it's so fascinating, and the way that they theme subjects in the bookshop is just really fabulous. And it's right opposite Second Home, which is again one of the most fantastic places for supporting and incubating creative and social enterprise. A good place. Anyway, I digress. I am going to now introduce you to Tim West. Tim and I have never actually met in person. We've met through me being a customer, really. I'm a subscriber to Pioneers Post because I've more recently become interested through my chairing of the Social Enterprise Mark of the world of social enterprise. And I was really fascinated to find out that Tim has had a long background in journalism and publishing, and has taken that online with Pioneers Post. But I won't steal his thunder. I will let Tim talk to us about his story and about his journey at Pioneers Post. Tim.
Thank you. Right, I'm just going to share my screen now, which hopefully is working.
There's always this Zoom moment.
Yeah. Okay, is that happening? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, yeah, thanks very much, Linda. I guess I exist in more of a niche world in some ways, because it's this strange world of social entrepreneurship that perhaps not too many people know about. But in a broader sense, I'm definitely all about storytelling. So we provide news, insight and storytelling to support social entrepreneurs, mission-led businesses and investors in some of their efforts to solve some of the world's big social and environmental challenges, partly through a creative agency that I founded called Fable Bureau, but mainly through now our online magazine, which is called Pioneers Post. And here are some front pages of Pioneers Post that I thought I would throw you into immediately, just to give you a sense of the sort of thing that we do. We're global, so there are stories from the UK, Latin America, stories about entrepreneurs, but also about investors. And quite often we do sort of big picture-led focus type stories, immersives we call them, which include video and audio as well, and on these beautiful pictures like this picture from Sudan. We say we're the independent news network for the global impact community. And we have a mission to help our readers do good business better. We do that essentially by delivering intelligent journalism, and our output is what you'd find in most different news publications, a mixture of news, features, comment, films, and as I say, multimedia, so podcasts and film, as well as social media too. I guess we've been a bit of a slow burner. So we first launched our predecessor magazine to social enterprise, which is called Social Enterprise Magazine, in 2002, round about the time when the UK government was just beginning to look at the idea of social enterprise and social investment. Then during the sort of 2010 to 2020, there was a period where really there was a massive explosion in the interest of around investing and entrepreneurship for social change. And we responded to that by becoming global and with a name change, calling ourselves Pioneers Post, mainly because we didn't want to be locked into a sort of pigeonhole around the idea of social enterprise and what people thought it meant. And we actually thought we were about and for the notion, the idea of pioneers. And pioneers in our book are people who want to change the world, but they use business and investment to do it. Right now, it's quite an exciting world because the impact investing world is approaching, the market is approaching value worth $1 trillion, which is pretty tiny compared to ESG, environmental and social and governance investment, which is about 40 trillion. And I think the kind of global investment market is worth 200 or 300 trillion. So 1 trillion is tiny, but it's grown almost doubled, I think, in just the past 2 or 3 years. So it's definitely a growing market, and more businesses, governments and investors are getting excited about the idea of being able to return a profit, but a profit for people and planet, as well as a profit in monetary terms. My own career, I guess, has mirrored the career of the magazine. I started off thinking I was going to be more creative than social. I did a music degree. I thought I was going to be an opera singer, and then I got a job on a local newspaper, actually above a stationer's. So nice link there. And I started off on the career path of a news hack. But while I then went to London, and while I was really interested in general news, I was captivated by the stories of some of these early social entrepreneurs, and lucky enough to write about them. It sort of moved me so much, I guess, that I decided that going into social enterprise was the world that I wanted to be in. And so I launched a magazine and the agency. We're small as a team. This is our team here, so pretty tiny, but we're international. We've got one person lives in Spain, 2 people from France, 1 from the Netherlands, 1 from Northern Ireland. And it's important to us to realise, as part of our mission, that social enterprise is an international story, and often people think of things in silos. And one of the things that we want to do through our storytelling is to break down some of those silos, both geographical silos and sector-based silos. We've grown quite a bit in the last couple of years. So from about 100,000 unique visitors now to approaching 200,000 unique website visitors. And with a pretty decent social media following on Twitter and LinkedIn, around about 30,000. Our audience is a whole mixture of people, from the social entrepreneurs and innovators right through to people in the public sector, investors and academics and students. And as I say, we're read now throughout the world. I guess the UK and Europe are still our biggest market, but US and North America are pretty big, and we have probably 20,000 readers in the other continents around the world. Really importantly, and another thing that makes us different is we decided in around about 2012 that we wanted to put our money where our mouth is. So not only did we write about social enterprise, but we became a social enterprise. That meant that we decided to adopt a different legal structure. We changed our constitution, and we decided that all our profits would go back into supporting our social mission. And that's about, as I've explained, developing and supporting social entrepreneurs and mission-driven business. As part of that impact that we want to create, we also partner with people, and we've become very interested in the notion of how to challenge and change journalism as well, in a positive sense. So the idea of exploring solutions journalism, which is not just about reporting things that have happened or about bad news, but looking into all news and trying to use a lens for that news that focuses on how to do things and how to do things better. As I say, our journalism includes all the normal things you might expect, but the impact that we create is a bit broader than that. We run events, we have various partnerships, and we do training for other social entrepreneurs to help their storytelling, and also for young journalists to get them more knowledgeable about the idea of doing journalism with a solutions lens. Our partnerships enable us to do that really effectively. And one particular partnership I wanted to tell you about was the Global Perspectives partnership we have with the British Council, because it allows us, through the British Council's links, to actually explore and tell stories from all sorts of remote and interesting places all around the world. And it's given us a huge opportunity. It's also given us a fantastic opportunity to work with young journalists from different parts of the world, and to support them into the communications and storytelling careers that they want to have. You can see here, for example, that this is an example of a program that we ran with the British Council called the Young Storymakers, which included people from Indonesia, Egypt, UK, South Africa, Brazil and Pakistan. And we brought them together almost as a sort of virtual news team, and we got them to go and explore the stories of social change that were happening around their local communities in different countries, to share them with each other, but also then to use our platform as a way to share them with a broader audience. And as this is a story about breaking down disability stigma in Indonesia. There's a story here about a DJ working in the poor areas of Sao Paulo to be a mentor to young people there. And there's a story here from Pakistan about Pakistan's first transgender beauty salon. Now, we wouldn't have been able to even find out about those stories had it not been for that exciting program. We've got a number of other ways in which we make sure that we're delivering impact. Obviously, COVID has been a big thing in terms of how to support people, how to support social entrepreneurs through that. And then there's various other partnerships we have. This is one with a European Venture Philanthropy Association, and this is a partnership with NatWest back in the UK, where for the past almost 10 years now, we've been doing an annual index of top 100 social entrepreneurs, both to celebrate what they're doing, learn from them, and to award them and recognize and share their stories. There's a spin-off from that, which is about leading women in social enterprise as well. So we're available for you to connect with us in all the normal ways. And I've probably spent far too long talking, so I'm now going to hand over and give the chair to back to Linda. So thank you.
Thanks so much. That's absolutely brilliant. I think you've illustrated extremely well why partnerships really matter. And yes, such fascinating insights into your business, Tim, and the images. Fantastic. They come across really well in the presentation, and I think, you know, if you with journalism like yours, I think if the images also really convey part of the story, it's really helpful and impactful, as you say. But we can ask more questions about that later. My final guest this evening is Carolyn Daly. And I do have a story to tell about meeting Carolyn for the first time. It's not many people you can say you met them for the first time at number 10 Downing Street, but I did. I was invited to the launch of Creative Entrepreneurs in 10 Downing Street. And I thought, wow, this woman must be really influential if she's doing a launch at number 10. I'll leave her to say some of the circumstances of that. But it was an absolutely inspiring evening, and there were a lot of people there that I knew. I realised that I was only one of 2 people from higher education at the event. The other people from higher education, I think, was it National Film and Television School, or was it Royal?
Yeah, Nick Powell from NFTS.
Nick Powell from NTFS, yeah. So I was really stunned to be invited. But I soon learned that actually Rohan Silva was there, and Rohan Silva is one of your big ambassadors. And we got talking with a lot of different people, and you know, that the rest, as they say, is history. We got to know each other, and Carolyn has also supported some work at Ravensbourne University when I was VC there. So intense pleasure to introduce my final guest, Carolyn Daly, and she can tell you loads more about her organisation, Creative Entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much, Linda. I loved harking back to that story, and I'll tell you more about that because it has so much to do with what we're talking about tonight. And first, I want to say to Tim and Fareed, thank you so much. You know, as a citizen, the fact that both of you are focused on telling stories that are about what's real and what's factual, in different ways, but totally aligned ways. It just makes me happy that you're both doing what you're doing. And I think it's such a service to the world. So thank you so much, you know, for read through graphic novels that's going to appeal to a certain audience and have a certain way of telling the story. And Tim, through journalism, taught through a lens of social enterprise, both of those just such important things with news under such threat in the world today. So thank you. It makes me happy to hear your stories. And Creative Entrepreneurs is about the storytelling and telling the story of business in a different way to creative people. And I'll show you some slides, but basically I spent my whole career in the creative sector. Despite my accent, like Fareed, I'm from North America as well. I was raised in America, but I've lived here by far most of my life, always in the creative sector at Time Warner, and left to start my own business. And I was shocked by how much I didn't know what I didn't know about starting a business. So I'll jump in and tell you a little bit more. And I'm sharing. So to tell you about, so creative entrepreneurs, and you might notice this is our logo and the E is backwards. And that's for a really important reason for us, which is often in the creative world, the idea of business is very foreign. It can be a real turnoff. It can be seen as overly commercial, potentially a bit grubby. It can be seen as selling out commercially, all these sorts of things. And we want to tell a very different story about entrepreneurship. We want to turn the idea of entrepreneurship on its head for creative people and really reclaim the definition of the word entrepreneur for creative people in a way that appeals to them and makes sense to them, but most importantly, so that they see entrepreneurship as a means to an end, as a way to give their creativity more flight and amplification, and basically let their creativity soar in a way they never thought. Because if they have a successful business underlying their creative idea, they can be more creative than they ever dreamt because they're not worried about paying the rent and all the rest of it. So that's the idea of having the E backwards, is we want to reclaim the meaning of that word, turn it backwards. And we also want the E at the beginning of entrepreneurs to face the E at the end of creative, so that the two of those are coming together in a really unique way that appeals to creative people, so that they can use, they can be, business is the vehicle, they're the master. That's the idea. Uh-oh, now there we go. So why am I talking to you about this? I mentioned this, I spent all of my career at Time Warner, always in London. And so I came from a world of, it's Warner Brothers, HBO, CNN, at the time, Time Inc., all the magazines like People Magazine, InStyle, Wallpaper, all that. So I come from a world of television, film, and journalism magazines. And I started at Time Warner at CNN specifically when Ted Turner was still very, very involved in it. So journalism, just FYI, is very close to my heart. So I loved hearing both of your stories so much more because of that. So I came from the creative sector. Like I say, I left to start my own business and thought, yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to do creatively, and was quite shocked to find out that that was really great, but I knew nothing about the startup side of a business. And when I started asking all of my friends in the creative sector about it, I thought, well, you know, like many people, this must just be me. And I'm asking all of my creative friends, and they all said, oh, no, we're the same, you know, from world famous architects or fashion designers to the second-year student at Central St. Martin's, like every single point in the spectrum, everybody in the creative sector said the same thing. There's no joined up business support. We've all struggled. We haven't grown quickly enough. We made stupid mistakes. There's no joined up place. So I thought that seems really crazy. So this is kind of the timeline of this. I'm gonna get that out of the way a little bit. So basically that was my big light bulb moment, and contrasted with my friends in tech, where I saw that tech was and is brilliant at organizing and encouraging the tech ecosystem and helping the next generation come up and helping the people starting new businesses. In the creative sector, there's really no joined up place that does that. And so I thought this was all really bizarre, and there were a bunch of reasons that this all happened, which included a meeting at the Arts Council where I sort of accidentally opened my mouth and said, why isn't there just like a baby step website that brings together and joins up in a really logical way the things that creative people should be thinking about to start a business? And they said, yeah, why don't you do that? So then I did. And so then that turned into what Linda said, which was, it was this little website bringing together and curating resources from across the web that would help and be in the language. That's the most important thing, in the language that creative people can understand, because business tends to be spoken about in a language that financial people can understand, but the creative people are completely flummoxed by what does that mean? There's a lot of jargon, etc. So it started with this little website. It was a prototype. The launch at number 10 was because at Time Warner, I had spent a lot of time with people at Number 10 and other sort of decision makers in different sectors about the media and creativity and things like that. And so they kindly let us do this launch, but it was really to get awareness for what we had done, that people would know, creative people would know that there's a central place to come. So we did that, and Linda was there. And as Linda said, you knew a few people, and that was the idea. We wanted to bring the ecosystem together. So to have people like Linda from higher education, to have investors who typically and famously sort of shy away from the creative sector because they don't really like it. It's like the creative process and creative people, and they much prefer businesses around automation and things like that. So anyway, we wanted to kind of acclimate investors to creative businesses, bringing together creative entrepreneurs themselves and professional advisors, so lawyers, accountants, all these different people around, you know, creative businesses need specific help to grow. So that was the point of the Number 10 launch, and that was great because it got awareness, and then we had so much demand from that we started to grow the business mainly through, and to Tim's point about the social enterprise, the CIC, whatever, all of a sudden we have this business and it's like, okay, what should this be? Should this be a charity? It feels like a charity because we're completely mission driven. We want to help people improve their lives, but gosh, a charity is quite, and Tim doesn't have a charity, I hasten to add, but I'm just saying our thought process. Charities are quite expensive. They're actually quite restrictive in what you can do. And then the light bulb, I thought, we're trying to encourage people to be entrepreneurs. So we've got to walk the walk here. This needs to be a limited company. So we started, it is a limited company. And so we started growing live events and had a whole bunch of demand and people so excited to have a place to come. And then we did a big partnership with the Design Museum. Then we had COVID, and that led to a huge, massive, radical pivot of creative entrepreneurs, which has been going on since April. And we're just about to, we've launched in beta and we'll launch to the general public later this year, but a now fully digital online membership that's a first of its kind. That's a rolling educational monthly program of education, events, connection, et cetera, et cetera. So we have every month a new, it's master classes taught by experts who are teaching people about topics they need to know about to start creative businesses, but they're taught by people who understand creative businesses and how to talk to creative people. So we've got a whole library of those, but a new one coming every month. We've got every month events with creative founder role models. So that's a big problem for creative people starting businesses, is that, and that's to do with storytelling. We don't, the press, when they cover big creative founders like Thomas Heatherwick, the architect, or like Roxanda, the fashion designer, they want to talk about Roxanda's autumn winter collection. Understandably, they want to talk about Thomas's next building in China, understandably, because that's what their audience wants to hear. But then no one gets to hear that story of, oh, right, Roxanda has no business training. How did she build this global brand? Thomas has no business training. How does he have this global architecture brand? So we want to break through that and let creative people see themselves represented in the world as entrepreneurs. So that's huge for us. And then we want to put people together with peers so that they can compare notes and not feel alone, as most entrepreneurs do, and mentors, collaborators, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very much business advice for creatives from creatives. And it's all online. And by definition, because it's online, it's global now. And that's what I just described for our members, but then for our wider community, because we will always have lots and lots of free resources. That's how we started. So we still have our library of free resources that are highly curated, really helpful for creative entrepreneurs. And we have a virtual events program that anybody can participate in. And we also have what's called the Journal, which is our online magazine. And just to flip through some of these, I've touched on these, so I'm going to race through. But yeah, we're on a mission to help people, creative people, build brilliantly successful businesses. And these are some of the people that we've worked with. These are the people who have been our role models. So Amanda's an architect. Matthew is the founder of Freeze, a jazz, founded AKQA, Charlotte Tilbury, fastest growing beauty brand. I won't name them all. And then these, we work very closely with cultural organizations, because I personally, and we as creative entrepreneurs, feel, why is it that the UK and the US are the only two truly global leaders in the creative sector. There's a big difference in the size of those two countries, and what is it that makes the UK such a world leader? And I firmly believe it's because of our culture, that our cultural institutions are really the R&D arm of our commercial creative sector. So we work really, really closely with them. I'll stop there. I can show you more about the membership. Linda, I'll turn it back over to you. If you want me to show people more like what happens inside the membership area, I can, but I want to turn it back for questions and our audience.
That's great. I think you've given everybody a really, really great flavour of what you do, and also how you've managed to pivot your support in the past year, which has been really, really helpful. And I think I'll start asking you some questions, which hopefully will flush out some more of that. I think you've all extremely well managed to describe the aspects of storytelling and building your story in your brands. So I'm going to go straight to thinking about learning points, because of course each of you has learned a lot along the way. And I wanted to know what you thought your biggest learning points were when you were starting out that you'd like to share with our audience. What were the sort of things you said, oh, wish I'd known that? So maybe starting with Tim first, what's your biggest learning point?
I was thinking about this, and I'm going to cheat slightly because there's a book that I was involved in creating. I edited it with a social entrepreneur called Liam Black, called The Social Entrepreneur's A to Z. It's got an A to Z of really, really good learning points for social entrepreneurs, and some very good human ones. The first one in there that I thought it's really worth pointing out is a fairly obvious one, but it's B. B is for business basics, and there's a lovely quote in there from Michael Jordan, the basketball legend, which says, "You can practice shooting 8 hours a day, but if your technique is wrong, then all you become very good at is shooting the wrong way. Get the fundamentals down and the level of everything you do will rise." So I thought that was really good. The other lessons I suppose I would want to share are there's another one called D is don't believe the hype. So it's great to go for awards. It's great when everyone tells you you're brilliant, but actually you've really kind of got to get egos under control and make sure you're kind of dealing with the realities of the business. And the other one, just to balance that, is L, which is L for looking after yourself. And as my family keep on telling me, I'm not very good at doing that. I work ridiculous hours. You know, we all do. If we're social entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who believe in something, we're quite bad about the way we treat ourselves. And so when I studied a little bit at Cranfield Management School, and they used to talk about money, markets, management, and me. And the me part is really important, because if you don't get the me part sorted out, it's not about being selfish, but it is about making sure that you're okay and in the right kind of fit position mentally and physically to deliver what you want to do.
I think that's a really important point you make there, particularly for people that are starting out, that are in creative startups, for instance, that are often running micro businesses, and they are the business. So really important to look after me. Does that resonate with you, Carolyn?
I couldn't agree more. And totally the basics. And I love, you know, me, meaning it really, what you're going to do. This can sound so basic, but I think so profound. Your experiences in life, how you've come to be where you are, everything you've ever done is so unique that your business is going to be so unique, and really believe in that and really stay grounded in that, and don't go chasing after different things. I mean, first, when I was starting my business, I'm thinking, I'm reading because everything you read about startups tends to be tech startups, because that gets the most airtime. And it's like, oh, I guess I should be getting investment. I guess I should be having hundreds of employees, because that's how they judge everything. You know, like when was it founded? How much investment do they have? How many employees do they? Well, I mean, that's a very tech that does lend itself to tech startups, but go to the basics of what your business is. is that something you should be doing right now? And a very, very, very successful entrepreneur said to me, and I think it's one of the most important takeaways, you know, he said, I ask startups, what's the most important thing you should be doing first? And he said, the number of people who say to me, making money, we should be making money. And he said, no, I always say, you should be making a really great product. That's what you should be focusing on, because once you have a really great product, then that's what's going to let you go forward and not making what Tim refers to, you know, your technique is bad and you're just getting better at a bad technique. It's that kind of idea. So I think it's being very grounded in and not getting torn away by listening to lots of things that are bandied about. What's your business really about and what do you do that's unique? Don't worry about the competition, stay in your lane and what you're going to do great at, and just really maximize that.
Great, thanks, Carolyn. And so Farid, do you have any different lessons that you've learning points from your starting out?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, there's loads of lessons, but I think the ones that sort of, I guess, are higher up the pyramid in terms of, you know, things that are important to me. And of course, as Carolyn just said, everyone's journey is very different. So I think looking at what the rest of the world is doing and constantly comparing yourself is a recipe for disaster anyway, because I don't think that can ever lead to happiness. So I have a very simple framework for myself. You know, Tim, you were mentioning another one. Mine is the 4 H's. It's something that I came up with for my team to think about. I said, home, health, hair, and happiness. And it's a bit of a funny, but you know, if any of those 4 things are not, if you're losing any of those 4 things, you should quit what you're doing or rethink it, at least in a big way. Because for me, I mean, I'm a family man. I got, you know, I'm married. I've got 2 kids. It's very important that I'm able to play my other role. And I'm not successful if I'm just successful in business. You know, this isn't my measure of success. My measure of success is great. Yes, I need to earn enough to support my family and hopefully create jobs. And yes, of course, make people happy. And nothing makes me happier than going somewhere and seeing somebody sitting down with my book and reading it. Of course it does. But that's not what life is about for me. And so hopefully people have had a chance over the course of the last year to perhaps be a little bit more introspective and think about what's important for them, their lives, their journey. And everyone's story is different. So again, it's not a lesson that I can say is for everybody, but certainly for me, those are the things that I like.
Great. That's really good. I shall remember that, the 4 H's. That's one I've not come across before, but I like that. Hair, do not lose your hair. I think that's a great bit of advice. Although obviously at the moment, a lot of different things happening to our hair in the pandemic. I'm going to move on to thinking about other people. And a number of you did also mention people that have been inspirational along the way. I just wondered if you could tell us about, along the way, who's helped you? Have you had inspiring mentors, coaches, other forms of peer support? Who has helped you? Who's helped drive your ambition in this particular journey? And maybe I'll start with Carolyn on this one.
Well, I mean, I would go from the sort of this massive range, but it wasn't that he was like he wasn't a direct mentor of mine, but watching Ted Turner at the very beginning of my career and watching him, it was basically like working at a startup and watching him, you know, he'd say, well, you know, we made a decision. I'm not sure if it's right, but we're doing something, right? Like we're doing something. You just got to keep moving. And the sort of lead follower, get out of the way, and kind of being in way over your head and that's entrepreneurship, being way in over your head and not knowing what you're doing in a lot of different areas, but that's okay because you have the confidence that you're going to be able to figure it out. And I think that's possibly one of the most important lessons I think about being an entrepreneur is to keep that confidence, because you're going to be hit with stuff all the time that you don't understand. You don't know where it fits. You don't know what to do next. That's okay. You're going to figure it out. So just keep at it, keep looking. So that was just watching, you know, one of the great entrepreneurs ever. And then just amazing friends and colleagues. That's a huge piece of advice I would give to people. Keep in touch with everyone, talk to everyone. Everyone else is dealing with stuff too. Like find buddies that you can have in these days, Zooms, but you know, whatever, or you could go walk in the park, but just keep in touch, because you can learn so much from each other. And it's really, really important. People at your own level, or people just a little bit of more advanced than you, super important to keep in touch with them. So to just keep these people on your radar that you see that are in your industry and doing great things, or people that you know that are your peers, that's crucial.
Okay. Great. And I know, Farid, you've mentioned Max Brooks before, but maybe think of somebody outside the Max Brooks experience, of somebody that's really kind of inspired.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to mention a couple of people that have made just an enormous impact. And one of them is someone I worked for. He was my immediate boss. And I had the good fortune of working at a venture capital fund for 2 years. And I worked for a gentleman there called Tim Jackson. And Tim is by far, I think he is absolutely the quintessential European or British entrepreneur. He's had a $2 billion exit and nobody knows who he is. And I love that, because you can go and sit down with him at a coffee shop and, you know, he's just like everybody else in the room. But what is amazing about this man is, in fact, and interestingly, Tim and Carolyn, he was a journalist at the FT. That's where he got his start. And he grew a business called QXL or bid.com and then sold that to Naspers, and then they had the big IPO and so forth. And Tim is one of the most humble people, and despite all the successes, despite the financial success and everything that he's done, he is just one of the most humble people to talk to. So I think if there's anything to learn from him, it's humility, and it's about being and having a learner's mindset all the time, just constantly being open to new stimulus. So he asks many more questions than he gives answers. I think that's a great tell for somebody who's really a thinker, because you should have more questions. If you don't, you know, you should be asking yourself, why not? So that's one person. I'd encourage everybody to look at him. And so he runs the VC fund is called Walking Ventures, and you'll probably still see my ugly mug on that website. So that's one. And then the second is a gentleman by the name of David Tomlinson. So if Tim taught me commercial smarts, then I think David taught me community and caring. And David was my boss at Accenture. I worked there for almost 12 years. And he was the managing director for UK and Ireland. Very, very commercially smart guy. But what was beautiful about him is that he really cares about the United Kingdom. He really cares about the people here. He really cares about communities. And he put me on something called the Council on Social Action. When I became program manager, we were working, it was a government council at number 10, working for the Prime Minister, Gordon Brown. And he was one of the council members. And it was remarkable because, I mean, the whole ethos of that entire council was about creating social value. It was about creating the social investment bank. It was saying that, okay, how can we invest money that we have back into the communities? How can we have more volunteering? How can we have, and these are all very esoteric things that I used to read about and say, I'm sure everybody does that, but no, actually what was amazing was that the United Kingdom actually, and this is something that differentiates this country, and I can say that as an immigrant here, is that there's a lot of social capital and there's a lot of community caring going on. I think Brits give back more money to charities than many, many other countries. There's something to be said there, something to look into. What does that do? What does that result in? And so David taught me about community and caring, and I really appreciate that. But just as a last and passing note, I think I'm incredibly inspired also by my wife, because I think she puts up with me, one, and two, you know, she's supported me all through my journey, because I think there are two types of people in this world: entrepreneurs that start, at least as far as we're concerned with people that start businesses, those that start when they have no families, or that maybe they might be free agents and not have so much financial pressure, and others that start when they have kids and a mortgage. And I was the latter. And I think when you do start in that environment, you have a lot more pressure. And without a strong partner, I think that's impossible to do. So that's my three.
I'm going to ask Tim just to mention briefly your inspiration, because I'm going to start moving on to audience questions as well.
Sure. So I might just reflect that, yeah, I think leadership and entrepreneurship can be very, very lonely and isolating. And at the same time, it's easy to almost get a Superman complex and think that you have to do everything as well. And so just to reflect on what you were both saying, family and friends definitely can and should ground you and hold you, support you. But equally, I think seeking support from your peers and peer networks, you know, people who are experiencing the same thing, that's really crucial. And certainly when I was at Cranfield, we were sort of partnered with kind of 5 other owner entrepreneur managers, you know, and it was fantastic just to be able to talk about whatever horrible thing we might be dealing with truthfully and not be judged on it, you know. The other thing I think is that what I found particularly recently, where I've been trying to change and grow my business and look at issues like investment and governance, no one's gonna, people are very generous with their time. You know, people will, if you just ask and you're honest about what you're asking, they will generally give you 10 minutes or half an hour of their time over a Zoom coffee, and it's worth thinking about that. In the social enterprise world, there are lots of people I'm inspired by, and I know I'm getting to the point now, sorry Linda, but you know, there are people like Mohammed Yunus, who sort of created the Grameen Bank. There are people like Liam Black, as I've already mentioned, who ran Jamie Oliver's 15 for a while. And I'm lucky to be on the board of Big Issue Invest, which is the Big Issues Investment Fund. And Nigel Kershaw, who runs that, is brilliant and grounded, and has been a friend and fellow Arsenal supporter for a long time. So it's great to have him as someone I can talk to.
That's great. I can really endorse that. Mohammed Yunus also funds a number of fantastic centres across universities in the UK and elsewhere, and I've had the privilege of working with some of the research fellows at Glasgow Caledonian University, where he funds one of the centres. Just inspiring work. And also Nigel Kershaw, what a great man. He gave me one of the best tips actually, which was if you've got kids or grandchildren, look at ethical investment and look at junior ISA packages for young people that are ethically investing your money, and Big Issue Invest can help you do that. But not meant to be an advert, but I just thought it was a really genius idea, to be perfectly honest. We've had some questions in from the audience which have actually corresponded to some of the questions we've already answered. But I wanted to ask some of the questions about what does success look like for a creative entrepreneur's business, and you know, and therefore that kind of theme about, you know, what are investors looking for, and therefore what might they think of as something that's worth backing. So maybe whoever wants to go with this one, I'll open it up to you.
I would love to jump in on that because it's one of my favorite subjects, because the creative sector is 90% micro businesses. It's 90% in a micro business is a business 10 people or under. And then it's a pyramid. You know, at the top, there are very few, very, very big companies. And at the bottom, so many micro businesses. And so I would say what success is what you think success is. And so don't let yourself feel influenced by, there's something wrong with me if I don't want to scale. Don't be taken aback by, I think, the very pejorative description of a lifestyle business. I hate that term. Like, a lifestyle business basically means you are making money and supporting your lifestyle. That's brilliant if that's what you want to do. But people talk about it in a very negative way, like, oh, that's just a lifestyle business. You don't want to be a unicorn, so you're a loser. So I think it's very, very much specifically for creative people. If you don't want to scale, if you want to be a one-man band, if you want to have 2 people in a design agency, that is awesome. Like, what we want to help people do is have like the best business for what they are trying to do. So fulfill their business potential in whatever shape or form that might be. And if you, however, we think it's great for people to be exposed to the ambition of what's possible. So you might feel that you want to just have the two-person design agency, but you should also know what the opportunities are out there. What if you were digitally enabled somehow and you could scale? You should know what that looks like so that you can make the choice yourself about whether that's something you would want to pursue. But it's really being true to yourself, what you want in your life. And if you want to scale, that's fantastic. And that usually means that you're going to need some form of automation and to have systems in place and operations and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people, that's what they want. And again, for businesses that are digitally enabled, that tends to be easier because it allows automation a lot easier. Like if you have a video games company, you're going to have a whole lot easier time scaling than you will if you make ceramics. But I would just say be very, very clear on what you really want for success and explore the different options, but choose what's right for you.
Okay, great. I've had a number of questions which are quite interesting around the kind of definition of entrepreneurs. And I know that Farid has been answering some questions from individuals, but there are some later questions which look at, are entrepreneurs good at starting things, but not necessarily great at maintaining them? And what gives your brand longevity? And I thought that might be an interesting one for Farid to start the ball rolling on.
Sure. So just so that I understand the question, there's two parts to it. The first is, are entrepreneurs particularly, do they have a proclivity to, for example, start something and then jump off? I once spent, I guess, a little bit of time talking to Richard Branson on a train, and it was a really interesting conversation because I asked him, I said, how have you been able to create all these amazing businesses? And he said, well, I just hire really smart people and I get out of their way. And I completely believe him, because I think and it's really hard to do, as mentioning in the chat, it's really hard to let your baby go. But I think if you're really smart, the best CEOs or the people that found their businesses, and if they are playing the CEO role, really their job should be, number one, to set the strategy. Number two, to raise a little bit of capital and make sure you have the money to go. And number three, to hire the best people. And if you do these three jobs really, really well, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to step away. And this is not a bad thing to step away. If everybody is better at a particular stage. So I might be excellent before there's a HR department. The moment there's a HR department, I'm out of there. And that's my personal preference. That has nothing to do with anything. I'll still be a shareholder, but I'm not really interested in working at a 200, 300, 400 people company. It's not that interesting. It's much more interesting to be in a small room with 5, 6 people trying to, crack heads and make an omelet. Like, it's awesome. I find that really, really exciting. So that's one thing. The second thing around, so I think the longevity thing comes up as a result. I personally believe it has a lot to do with whether brands really live their values or not. And I remember when we first started another technology-led business with a co-founder, we were the first guys to sort of go up in our accelerator and put up a list of our values on the wall behind us. And people sort of looked at that and they said, is that a joke? And I said, actually, it's not, because this is important to us. And it's sort of it's like a North Star, where if you relate to this, then you will probably be good partners for us. You may be good employees for us. You may be, good anything if you relate to the same values as us. And I think where it goes south is when companies proclaim values and then don't live them, or there's a very clear and obvious disjoint between what they say and what they do. So I think longevity is largely a function of course, continuing to innovate and being relevant to your customer, whoever that customer is. So if you're solving a particular problem, hopefully you continue to solve it for them, maybe in different ways, because technology and lots of things change over time. But as long as you're playing a meaningful role in your customer's life, then awesome. And by the way, I do not agree with the notion that, because there seems to be some division between technology and creativity. I don't see that divide. I see one, because I think that in order for you to be successful today, you have to use technology. And if you're in a creative business, fantastic. Gaming may be the ultimate example where ultimate art meets ultimate technology to create something phenomenal. But I think that there is this understanding that you can't be a creative engineer. It's complete nonsense. And I see people trying to pigeonhole people all the time, saying, oh, you're very left side of brain, or you're very right side of brain. I'm just like, I just don't subscribe to any of that nonsense. I think everybody's an individual. Everyone has certain skills and interests and stuff that they're good at. And then you have to find that. And the moment what you're good at meets values and somebody who's looking for help, that's when you have a great business.
Can I jump in there? Because I think it's very important to, we're stuck with this word creative. And in my view, there's kind of big C creative and small c creative, where meaning my personal belief is if you're human, if you have a pulse, you're creative. All human beings are creative. We're built that way. When we, the creative entrepreneurs, use the word creative, we're talking about a creative business, which is a business that is selling a product, which is the product of human imagination. So it's selling, it's selling the fashion collection, it's selling the plans for the building, it's the architect, it's selling the music, etc., as opposed to being primarily about the technical functionality. It's mostly about the creative aspect. So just to make that clear, because it's a horrible, to be stuck with that word. It's sort of like, what are you saying? Like nobody else is creative? Everybody's creative. It's just a particular type of business that we're talking about.
Well, the time is absolutely flying. I'm going to try and move to our last question, which I'm going to try and make a bit of a hybrid from 3 different sources. And so you can take your pick, and each one of you can answer a different angle on this. But I'm going to ask you to be succinct. There's a specific question about sources of information for entrepreneurs in the charitable sector. And I know that Tim's talked about CICs, and you've also talked, Carolyn, about why not a charity, but you might know the answer to that one. The other, for me, is the final thing I want to end on is around the kind of, how could the stations company and the government help innovators in social or creative enterprises in our industries particularly. One of the things that we currently do at Stations Company is the Innovation Excellence Awards, and they're currently advertised on our website. If you're not familiar with them, please look them up on our website. There's some fantastic accolades. I know Tim was talking about don't always go for the awards, but it is a fantastic network as well, and a really great way of learning more about innovation within the sector. So I want to know, how would you, what kind of thing do you think that the Stations Company could do more of? And of course, today has been budget day. What more could the government do? Have there been some really bits of good news for you in the budget? Or have you looked at it and thought, oh, they've missed that? So there you are. I kind of wrapped up 3 almost completely unrelated issues: support for resources on entrepreneurship in the charity sector, support from the Stations Company, and support from the government, from the budget. So anybody like to go first on any of those themes? I'm going to start with Tim.
All right. So yeah, I'm kind of sort of legal structure neutral, I suppose. We talk about social enterprise as a verb, not a noun. So it's not what you are, it's what you do with it that counts. And I think the charity is similar. You can be entrepreneurial and innovative and high growth as a charity as well. It just happens to be that you have a different legal status and some different bureaucracy to go through. In terms of sources that can support you, so for investment, charities and social enterprises can go to look at a website like Good Finance, for example, which has, I think, a list of 60 plus investors and funds, including sort of everything from grant up to equity, for people who are entrepreneurial, who want to use a charity model or any other kind of business model that will do good as well as do well. In terms of what the government could do, so I think today the government did announce that it was going to continue social investment tax relief for a couple of years, which is quite good because it means that there's a tax incentive for people who want to invest in good businesses and in charities. And I think there's a broader question about the understanding of how creative and social entrepreneurs can be part of a new type of supply chain for a new type of economy. And I don't think really the government has got to grips with that yet, or quite understands the role it should play in a different kind of procurement system and supply chain.
Thanks, Tim. Any more for any more? Any other answers about station support or other means of support?
I'd like to add just one small thing that I think, and I'm new to stationers, but I've been really impressed with what Linda and the rest of the team are doing. So thank you so much again for telling me about it, and Carolyn for that great storytelling around, you know, the copyright and stuff. So I think most people just don't know who you guys are, at least in our industry and perhaps in my generation. So it's much more about, I think you just need to get out there and do some PR for stationers and explain to people why it's relevant for this, for the next generation to be a part of it. And they will see that. And so, for example, if you have subgroups for stationers and gaming, stationers and, I don't know, VR, stationers and virtual worlds, whatever that is, but I think you need smaller units where people can congregate and find like-minded people that can help them collaborate. And also, again, if by working with great partners like Creative Entrepreneurs, you can put out some content that makes sense around the stuff that we need. So for example, there's R&D tax credits, there is video games tax relief, there's stuff that can really, these are all government programs, they haven't been taken away. So for me, actually, that's the good news in the budget, is that a lot of good stuff stays. And then Rishi Sunak talks about, you know, the green revolution. Awesome. That's more social enterprise stuff and more social impact stuff. So I think it could have been a lot worse. It's not been a bad budget, so it's good.
Okay, great.
I couldn't agree more with that, because it was so funny but with my team, you know, and I know Linda, and it's my great privilege. I've been to Stationers Hall, the most magnificent place you can imagine, and I kind of get it. But then I'm faced with the challenge of, I'm telling my team, yeah, I'm gonna be on this panel, Stationers company, and they're I'm like, how can I explain livery company? What are all the, and then I kind of like, oh yeah, okay, you know what? And I don't know if you agree with this, Linda, but then it seemed to kind of get, and made sense to me too. It's like, it's a trade association, you know, it's like the British Fashion Council these days. And Linda, you could totally disagree with me, but it's sort of, this is a trade association, and people could like grasp that. Okay, it's a trade association for the media industry and the creative industries and media and publishing and books and newspapers and words and things. And I agree. I think it could have so much more impact, in the ways I would suggest impact are convening like you're doing tonight. So important. You know, you have this amazing organization behind you. And so to convene people and talk about these sorts of issues and give them oxygen is massive. And I also think that awareness of the commercial significance of the creative sector, it always amazes me that the creative sector is the second biggest economic sector contributor in the UK. God knows past pandemic where we are, but it was growing 3 times as fast as the rest of the economy. It's on par with America. That's insane, you know? And so that people understand, parents who like try to steer their children away from a creative career because they're trying to protect them. They don't want them to be starving artists, or kids that think, well, I better not do that because I'm not going to be successful. All these things. It's like, no, this is a big, bright future, and even more to come, you know, as creativity, I think, is going to take over more and more of the proportion of business, and let's stop being ashamed of business and creativity going together. And I think stationers could play a great role in just giving oxygen to that idea that it's a great career to be in the creative sector, and it's an economic powerhouse, and let's be proud of it.
Great. I think those are fantastic closing words, Carolyn. I know we've gone over a little bit this evening, and I'm really pleased that we've still got a massive amount of numbers of people in our audience, so we haven't put you all off. I know that some people have probably gone to put their tea on, or to get another glass of wine. I just think it's been such a stimulating conversation, and thank you for your ideas about how the stations company could get out there. This, I think, is one of my suggestions anyway, that we did a panel on entrepreneurship so that we could inspire some startups and some areas and involve people at kind of the start out side of their careers in creative or social enterprise in the communications and content industries. And hopefully you're with us for part of the journey as well, which would be great. So we really hope that you will support us in that ongoing work, and hope to welcome you eventually to Stations Hall when we reopen sometime in the kind of lofty, you know, the sunlit uplands of the future. I'm going to say thank you to all three of you, to Farid Huq, to Tim West, and to Carolyn Daly. You've been a real inspiration this evening, so thank you very much. And hopefully we'll be able to invite you to other events in the future, if not especially the Innovation Excellence Awards. I have to mention that I am a judge, so don't ask me for my opinion on things because I'll be on the judging panel. And Jill Jones is going to be leading that venture very, very shortly, and applications are rolling in as we speak. I must remind you also that we've got a lot of fantastic future events coming up, and Carolyn's mentioned copyright a number of times this evening. We've got a fantastic event on the 10th of March with a UK-US copyright theme. So if you want a bit more on copyright, particularly US-UK themed, that's your bag. And obviously look up stuff on our Innovation Excellence Awards as well. I apologise to everybody for running over a wee bit, but I think it's because it's been such fantastic content. So thank you very much, everybody. And I'm going to sign out now. And
Thank you,
so
Linda.
thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thanks so much for hosting us. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks
Thanks, Tim.
everybody for coming.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.